everyone. Welcome to the Believe in Yourself, Heart&Mind podcast, where we bring on really amazing guests who are personable, relatable to your journey and experience. And today I have on a really special guest, someone I've known for some time, and now she's a rising star in her work as an artist, a musician, someone who really can connect with you through storytelling, and just released her first set of songs this year and actually this month. So super excited to bring Val on. And Val, could you quickly introduce yourself? And would love to jump straight into the question of basically why music and why are you in this journey of going in and becoming such a, a storyteller in music?
Yeah, so my name is Val Merza, and I'm originally from Bergen County, New Jersey. I moved down to Charlotte, in North Carolina, a little over a year ago. I just had to get out. Um, but Anam, how North Jersey is kind of one of those places where it's like the longer you stay, the less likely it is that you're gonna leave. Yeah, but yeah, that's why I left. I've been pursuing music since I got down here. I didn't really do music very much before I got here, and this was kind of done out of necessity. When I first moved down here, I was in wealth management, but it was really difficult for me to find a job down here because of a bunch of different factors, the economy, the job market. So I decided I'll just play a few gigs to make ends meet until I could get a full-time job. And it was a happy accident, pretty much. This is now my full-time job. I could not get a full-time job if I wanted to. But music, again, it was a happy accident. I was just talking to a friend earlier today that this was never the plan. I just got very lucky. I'd say that I didn't know that this was the dream until I was living it. But it is a really special thing, writing lyrics for yourself that it really was just for me. I would play them out, but it ended up resonating with a lot of people, the things that I was saying. And like I was telling one of my friends that I think that when I talk, people like what I say. It's just hard to get them to listen sometimes, and the music helps with that. So
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said that sometimes you just gotta go through a journey of moving out and finding your own voice and your passion. And sometimes, as you were saying, the happy accident, you don't always know or kind of plan everything out. Some things are planned, but other things are just innate where you're just you know what you enjoy, what you don't, and then with that you kind of have to adapt and adjust, right? So
yeah.
what made you like go in that direction of like adapting, adjusting? Like why is it that you're able to adapt so quickly even though there are serious challenges?
Well, it's kind of a good and a bad thing with how quickly I can adapt. Because, I mean, you met me when I was 18. I'm 25 now. You know firsthand how quickly I had to either adapt or suffer a lot. So, I mean, it was kind of a it is still kind of a survival instinct, and it has helped me a lot. But on the flip side of that, and I've been working on this and I still am working on this. I'm a lot better with it, but stability is very unfamiliar and very uncomfortable. And there's actually, funny enough, there's a line in one of my songs that's called Home. But one of the parts is, "You were everything I wanted, you just couldn't be what I need." And at the time, I was talking about a person, like a relationship that had ended, but it can go for a lot of other things too. Like, just because something is familiar and just because you want it, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily the best thing for you, long term or even short term. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, I got the chills when you said that, of like just because something is familiar doesn't mean that it's like right for you. And I
Change is very uncomfortable.
yeah, and it's like uncomfortable is actually normal in a way. Can you give us like the backstory of what you meant, like where you were in terms of survival, and is survival today any different than when you were around the age of 18 versus 25?
No, and there are similarities, but they're also very different. Like my survival up until I was 18 was very looking out for my physical safety. That was a big, I did not grow up in a safe home environment, as you know. And then after I left home on my 18th birthday while I was still in high school. I just left. And well, it really was to preserve my physical and mental well-being. I ended up graduating. It's a miracle if that happened. And then I graduated college. But that entire time, I was fighting to one, make ends meet and keep a roof over my head and keep food in my stomach. I had a lot of mental health issues at the time. So I needed to figure out how to get medication, how to go to therapy, how to see doctors. And there were a lot of things that I was not taught, like basic living skills, life skills that I was not taught. So I mean, other than the fact that you have to pump your own gas down here, I had to learn that once I moved out here. I think I had to do it even before I got here, obviously, because it's like 700 miles. Um, but it was basic living life skills that I'd missed out on that I just had to I had to teach myself how to take the bus. Like, and people think that, oh, it must be so nice. Like your parents took me everywhere, which is why you never learned how to use the bus. No, I was not allowed to feel independent because it would have stopped me from leaving, which I did anyway. Um, but that survival back then, a lot of it again was financial, keeping a roof over my head. And now, obviously, it's still very financial. I mean, Charlotte rent is not as cheap as people make it out to be. Um, but now it's more, I feel way more secure. I feel safer. I've never, and that's the crazy thing. It's like people have different definitions of success and happiness. And my thing is, I have never been poorer. I have never been hungrier a lot of the time. I've never been more tired. I have never been happier because I am safe. I'm not afraid that I'm going to have the world ripped from under me, which has been a fear for me in the past. Um, Now it's just like, how many throat lozenges do I have to make it to the next show kind of thing. Um, but yeah, when I think of the problems I have now compared to before, they're really insignificant. And there are pros and cons to thinking about it that way, but it's
Yeah.
very different. The concerns I have today are very different from what I had when I was 18, but I think that's just anyone, no matter your environment or your life circumstances.
Yeah, the safety part, I can resonate with that. I think, you know, when your parents are kind of like your whole world, and how they kind of talk to you or share their experiences with you can kind of dictate what the actual world and like looks like for you. So
I had just seen this quote a couple days ago. It gave me chills. I saw someone say that when you're born in a burning house, you think the whole world is on fire, but it's not. It's like, oh my God.
yeah, the fact that some people, you know, take it for granted that like their house is not burning, and then there are other
Yeah.
houses and there's like an invisible fire, and it's a little hard to tell. How did you make it through high school? Did any teacher ever talk to you or kind of try to help you?
No, so I actually had gone, well, until the ninth grade, I had gone to an Islamic private school and uh I was not supported. I had disclosed to the guidance counselor slash vice principal that I was being abused at home, and she went and told my parents instead, which, like, you know, is a huge violation. But because it's a private school, I didn't know any better. She got away with it. Um, but then in the 10th grade, I was still like really mentally distressed, and I ended up living in a group home for 8 months, and then I had gone to, 'another private school for the like pretty much mentally disturbed kids, which is like either they were depressed or anxious or any kind of mental illness, or there were substance use disorders, things like that. Um, and I moved out again on my 18th birthday while I was going to that school, and I ended up graduating. Uh, and then I was couch surfing at the time, and then I had gotten into um, the homeless shelter in Hackensack. And then after a few months, I got into the youth shelter in Hackensack. And then that's where I started community college, Bergen County. I graduated while I was still living in the shelter. And then I went to Ramapo College, started dorming 6 months in. We all got evacuated because of COVID. So I was kind of, again, that whole world ripped from under you thing. Wasn't given a lot of options. And obviously I wasn't working, so I couldn't really afford, even with the uh, unemployment and stuff. Unemployment was very difficult to get for me too. Um, I put myself through college and like community, and people also they think that, oh, you were homeless and you were making a very little money, you must have gone to college for free. No, that's not the case. Uh I did not get a great deal, especially considering I went to a 4-year school and I barely dormed. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah, you're going through so much already, and you have to kind of assert yourself in ways that early adulthood, you have the support of parents for on the usual side of things, but here in your case you kind of like had to imagine what you actually want to attempt and then go about doing that. I think in this case, trust is a little bit of an issue, especially since it was violated when you were in high school and with your family and things like that. How did you come about building trust, and who do you trust?
You know, what's crazy is when you're raised in an environment like that, of course you're not going to trust anyone because the people that gave you life and were supposed to protect you and keep you safe were the ones that ended up doing the most damage. Of course you're going to see the worst in people. And then I moved out and I started meeting people, and it's like people tell me that, oh, working in customer service made me lose my faith in humanity. It actually gave me faith, which is that really goes to show how bad my upbringing was. But over time, I started to realize that people are generally good. They don't, a lot of them can't get out of their own way. A lot of them have huge egos that most of us have an ego, but some people are willing to have someone fuel that ego at the other person's expense. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad people. People can have good intentions and still go about it the wrong way. And while you don't have to subject yourself to that, it's also nice to keep in mind that people are generally just doing their best and they don't always know how to go about it without hurting other people. Um, but that's, and since then I have also like had my trust broken a lot. Like I was in a really abusive relationship for about a year a couple years ago, and I did not even bother looking at anybody for like 3 years after that. But it's also one of those things where, oh well, Val, you grew up in that environment, how could you date someone who is violent? It again, it goes back to, you go back to what you're familiar with, whether it's good or not for you. And it's like, unfortunately, he felt like home. And you always find your way back home until you don't. But that, I mean, and you attract those people after a while, unfortunately. It's not your fault. It's more like they can smell it on you that you have that trauma that they can exploit. And I think keeping to myself, working on myself, and focusing on my career at the time, which was in wealth management and now music, I attract a very different type of person now. Of course, as a female musician, especially, like I always say, like down in the South, people are nicer. But after 10 p.m. at a bar, there's only one man, and we are all dealing with him. But uh, like building trust is hard, but I think I saw this someone say has like, you can't trust that somebody isn't going to betray you. You just need to know that you'll be able to handle it when it happens, if it happens. Little Freudian slip, as if I'm expecting people to. But the reality is that anyone is capable of hurting you, and that sucks. And the closer someone is, the more damage that they can do. And it's very possible that they will. But like now I have enough. Like before, I stayed in that relationship through the abuse because I didn't think that I deserved any better because that's all that I knew. Now, it's like I wish someone would speak to me that way again. And like I see, like a few years ago, I was still kind of in contact with my extended family, but I had removed myself entirely. But I had gone to like a family gathering where like I knew my parents wouldn't be and stuff, and I saw how some of the family members were speaking to like the women in the family or like other members. I was like, that's crazy that no one is even bothering to try that with me because they know better. Because they, and I also say that people will only respect you as much as you respect yourself. Only up to that. They might respect you less than you respect yourself. They're not going to respect you more. So be delusional. No,
Wow.
that's no, it's so true because people took me seriously as a musician before I knew what I was doing because I played the part. I got business cards printed from Canva and got it looking real professional. And I made a domain website. And I mean, I kind of knew what I was doing, but not really. Again, you just gotta believe that you know more than you do, and other people will believe it. And then eventually you'll learn the things that you're pretending to know. It's a really weird way of explaining it, but it's like, it seems to be working for me.
Yeah. So this is an interesting question I'm gonna ask you, but
Sure.
is there a way where you can break it down like through a self-talk? What would that self-talk look like that says Val is very capable, or she can, she knows more than she thinks she does? Like, how do you go about giving yourself that motivation to just do something that doesn't feel so familiar?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is looking at what I've achieved already for someone who has just come to North Carolina and is already, it's kind of like I might not know much about this, but considering everything else that I figured out, this I figured out way more difficult things, and this is gonna be fine. Like, and one of my like mantras, I guess you could say, is I'll figure it out. I always do somehow. I really should get that tattooed on my body because if I didn't figure it out somehow every single time, how did I end up here? How am I still alive? I wouldn't be.
That's awesome. I love that. I'll figure it out somehow. And that seems to open up more doors for you, because just from, the fact that like you're in your 20s and you can speak in such with such wisdom, um, despite all the challenges, shows how much work you've gone through. Because I know some people do like let's read a book and find all of those fast key steps, or hacks, or to think about what ways you can build certain good habits and things like that. Was that something similar you went through, or were there some different ways that you incorporated into your lifestyle?
No, nothing like that. I mean, even so, I was in therapy from the time I was around 13, 14 to 20. And then after that, I couldn't afford to keep going to therapy because the healthcare system in this country is just great. But honestly, I did not get a lot out of therapy, and that had nothing to do with the therapist. It was because I did not admit a lot of things to myself. And obviously, I was pretty much lying to my therapist, not intentionally, but oh God, there's another line in one of my songs where it goes, um, you gave me false hope and fed me lies that you never meant to tell, but you can only expect him to be as honest as he is with himself. And like that goes for me when I was in therapy. It's like I had zero self-awareness the entire time. And it's like I gained maybe a little bit of it, but that I think really was just age. But like I could not recognize that there were any flaws in my behavioral patterns, and that ended up doing a lot of damage to my life, to the people around me, to my relationships, probably my career.
Wow. So then who are the people that you keep closest to your corner? What kind of person?
Um, my friends for sure, my chosen family down here. My boyfriend, I guess. I kind of like him. He's in the other room. He's probably just like no. But the music community here has been really great. It's that has become my family. Some more closer than others, but and especially because they get it. Like not just me as a person, but they understand my craft and how much it means to me. And it's almost like if I try to speak to a non-musician about any of this stuff, like the marketing stuff or the business aspect of it or the actual musical part, which honestly, like in what I've been doing, has played a very small role in the entire thing. But songwriting, vocals, like they are going to understand it in a way that someone else who's not a musician just couldn't. And it's not their fault. They could try all they want, but if you're not in it, it's very difficult to speak the same language. But
Yeah.
those are the people that, yeah, there's some real, I'm very lucky. I've also had friends that I thought were in my corner and I supported them. They supported me until I got to a certain level of doing well. And then all of a sudden I start hearing what is being said about me. And the reason that those things are getting back to me is because the people that are overhearing them know that they're wrong. And they know that I don't deserve to have that said about me, which is why it comes back to me. But at the same time, I look back on who I was, maybe even 2, 3 years ago, not too long ago. I can't say that I'm any better than them, or that I was any better than that. I wouldn't behave that way now, but there's a good chance that I would have. So it's like I it's hard to find out that the people that you thought were in your corner are now telling people, "Oh, don't go to her shows because it's a competition and one ticket for her is a ticket away from you." And that's why it's like there's a difference between a music scene and a music community. And I think this is a mixture of both because a community is more uplifting each other, whereas a scene is kind of competition. And I think it would help a lot if artists realize how much power they have and that it does not have to be us versus each other. It is us versus the venues, versus the promoters, versus the Instagram algorithm. Like it doesn't have to be us against each other if we don't want it to be.
What are you doing about it now in terms of that belief of we can change like the scenario, the situation? It seems like that's kind of where you're headed.
Oh, telling people exactly what I'm telling you, especially other musicians. Like telling people, well, telling fellow musicians if they're trying to book somewhere, letting them know how much I'm getting paid from that place so that they're not lowballed or they're not taken advantage of. Because it's kind of like that myth that was perpetuated by like higher ups in companies. Oh, talking about your salary with your coworkers is rude. Why? Because they said so. They just don't want people to know that they're being exploited. It's the same thing with venues and promoters and musicians, and it's all the same. So, just supporting each other. There's no shortage of musicians to listen to. You don't have to constantly be getting one over the next person. Your only competition is yourself. You don't need to be any better than anyone besides who you were like yesterday.
Yeah. Yet, like some
I think
people,
social media makes that really hard. Sorry.
no worries. You're right. It does make it a little bit harder because people are kind of spaced out and they're in their own world in a way, or they have their own agenda of like goals and things like that.
Or
Um,
comparing numbers,
right.
followers, likes. It's a
Yeah.
huge thing. I am guilty of that too.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking that like, because it's great to talk about it. And I think you're right that we do need to speak up more on things that are of injustice. But there are some, doubts, especially, coming from your angle, which is I'm curious about, is you're able to talk this way, but um how do you know that those insecure feelings that you grew up with in a way don't just come out and say like, hey, the people who are in my corner, the people, are actually going to be there for me. Like, how do you go about creating a foundation of trust that doesn't kind of go with the tides, if you can say that?
Oh gosh. I think it really is just time, like time with the people, and especially like I think that a big part of it is, especially in the music community, the more you work with somebody professionally, the more you get to know them personally. And there are people that I would only just interact with them when we bumped into each other at an open mic or a venue or something. And then there are people that I go out and party with. And then there are like it's the same way there are different friends for different things. There are also like in the music community too. It's like I'm not going to hang out with every single person that I meet at an open mic, because some people are don't only clash in very specific ways. I mean, not clash, but connect in very specific situations, and that's fine. I'm very lucky that some of my friends, they're some of my best friends, and we also have great musical chemistry. Like, and that is, first of all, it is very difficult to find someone with musical chemistry with you, like, ever. Especially me, I have a very hard time playing with other people because I have control issues. Crazy how that works. But finding two in one is just, it's amazing. Yeah. I'm very lucky to have the people that I have.
Yeah, I love how you talk, to be honest, because just listening to you, there's so much joy. You keep saying things like I'm very lucky. Like there's a lot of positivity in how you speak about yourself and like the people around you. I can already, tell that the people who are around you are also very, supportive and encouraging, because I think the more you are that way, the more you find yourself connecting with people who are like that. And those who aren't so much like that, they kind of are repelled by it,
Gravitate towards
or
each other.
exactly. There's some kind of conflict. And then there's two intuition you have that says like maybe that person's not the right person to talk to. Not that they're any like a bad person or anything. It's just
Yeah.
a different place in their life.
Exactly. And sometimes people are just in your life for a very specific time period, and that's okay too. And it doesn't mean you have to have beef with anybody necessarily, even though some people it's very necessary too. But like, it's like people grow apart, especially like actually when I have just released my first single, almost, has it been 2 weeks? No, I don't think it's even been 2 weeks. But I just released my first single on July 7th. And that song, when I was reaching out to people, including you actually,
Yeah.
like letting them know the pre-save link, letting know the song's out. So it ended up reconnecting me with people from Jersey, New York, some places around the world that like my friends had moved away to other countries. And like it just reminded me like how many people, like, it's almost as if no time had passed. And that's really cool because we don't have to constantly be talking every single day. We don't need to hang out all the time, but we still support each other from a distance. Maybe not an emotional distance, but a physical distance. And we don't have to talk all the, some of my friends I only talk to maybe 3, 4 times a year. But when we do, we spend hours on FaceTime, just like catching up, like going over our notes, like sending each other screenshots of drama. Like it's there's so many different relationships and friendships, and it's just so cool to me that there's no one or right way to do any relationship or friendship.
Yeah. You're it sounds so authentic. The things that, people kind of wish for, but you're living it. What do you think is at this time of where you are in life, would you say you are successful? And if so, why?
Oh, successful? Uh, by success, I think like the way I'll explain it is yes, because I think it was when it was still cold, which is like really late in North Carolina, but I think it was in November when I had played a song on stage. And this was before I even started, I think it was before I even started pursuing this full time. I still, I think, had a part-time job and I was just playing like 2 gigs, no, maybe like 5 gigs a month. Um, but this girl came like running up to me and she was crying and she was like, "That song that you sang, like, did you write it?" And I said, "Yes." And she was like, I just got my heart broken last week and your song just made me feel a lot less alone. And that is, it's so surreal hearing someone say that because I wrote that song again for me. Like I just happened to play it out. Like I did not write that song for other people to be like don't get me wrong, there's a reason I chose This Is My 23 to be my first single is because that song I wrote it for myself, but I wanted my first single to be for everyone. And it ended up being pretty successful for a first time single. But when she told me that, she did not realize that by telling me that, she made me feel less alone too. And like, it's just this sense of community that music can bring. And that when I tell anyone like how my career is going, I say, that's when I made it. Like someone feeling seen and heard by one of my songs, that they're not alone and they're not crazy for feeling the way that they're feeling. It's like I already made it. Like that's I already hit success then. Everything else is just icing on the cake. And there's a lot's happened since then. And I was talking to my friend earlier today, Zach. He had actually produced my first single, plug, my homie. But um I had told him, it's like, I just want to see how far I can take this. Like, I don't think, but at the same time, I didn't think that I'd get this far. So, God, my ADHD is showing. I think I like stopped like 5 times. And
No, you're good.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. Because I'm just thinking to myself of um like you're telling yourself this is just my story and you're putting it into a song and you're creating this really good energy of like expressing yourself and being really raw and honest. And as you were saying before, when you were talking to therapists, you weren't so honest, but now you're learning how to do that, I think, through music and through songs and writing. And you're also very good at expressing yourself. And I think because of all that practice and that work behind the scenes, it came through in a way that touches upon the human experience, and it doesn't matter what that person's from, or what age they are, as long as they listen. And it's like we've all been through some of those similar experiences, right? The pain,
Yeah.
the heartaches, the
Yeah.
pressure.
And like part of why people, I think, enjoy my music is because it highlights how similar we are. And like we have way more in common than you'd think. Like
Mm.
no matter where you are in the world or what age, like it's insane. Like when you really look at each person, it's like we have so much in common. And it's like when you get past the ego and just get down to the experience that everyone's having, we're all so different, but we're all the same. Like being 23, there are nuances to everyone's story, obviously, but we're all living the same 23, and that was the whole point of that song.
Yeah, I think that that is very true. And the fact that you emphasize on we're all very similar, like we go through very similar experiences, Is that kind of like how you perceive life to be in a way where whoever you meet on the street to a stranger you first meet on stage or something like that, and you're playing songs with, and you get to chance to learn more about them, to even you know, exposing yourself to different opportunities and continuing this journey? Is it just that this mindset of life is really good and there are so many similar experiences, I can find something in common with someone, and that will help me. Um, is it to be happier, to like feel more successful? Is it about you? Is it about the other person? Like, how do you go about transitioning to creating this community?
Honestly, I'm just a very, very curious person, and I want to know everything about everything and everyone. And like I tell people I'm a starving artist, which I am, don't get me wrong, but I have a 4-year degree. I went to Rampo College for social science. That's what my degree is. And there's a reason I chose social sciences, because I love people and I wanted to understand them. And I mean, the education definitely helps, but there's no better way to learn about people than to talk to them. And like, oh God, people are so cool. Like everyone is so complex and they all have their own story, and there's so much more to every single person than what meets the eye. And just talking to people and just asking questions, and like all of my songs are, I could not have written them without other people. Like a lot of the lines in my songs are inspired by conversations with other people. There are songs that, like my song Home, it has 17 Easter eggs that there are and by Easter egg I mean there are very specific lines that even though other people can relate to it, only the person that the song is about can pinpoint exactly what conversation that I'm referring to, what song that he showed me, or she showed me, usually he showed me, that I'm referring to, what, like, and only they're gonna understand it. It's almost like an alternate dimension that I'm creating just for us. And it's really cool.
That
So,
is really
and
cool.
that's part of why I love songwriting. It's just a different way of talking to somebody and everybody at the same time. And even though
Yeah.
those Easter eggs are so specific to that person, somehow people still relate to it because music is art. It's open to interpretation. Like there are certain lines that, there's one time I sang a song, and then afterwards this girl came up to me and she's like, "You know what? I really liked that line, that line." And I said, "Wait a minute. What did you take that as? Like what did you understand from that line?" And she explained to me in her interpretation, and I said, "That's really cool. That is not what I meant at all." But it was so cool that she took it that way. And it's like, I'm not going to take that away from somebody. It's whatever you make it. Like, this song is for me in this way, but it's also for you in a completely different way. And that's so cool.
That is very cool. What are some of the challenges that you're facing currently as an artist, and as someone pursuing this career?
Number one, I think, just like anybody else, finances. It is very difficult to, like, there's a reason that my song took a year to for me to finally get out, because when all of your income is being put into rent and bills and auto insurance and like it's very expensive to exist, let alone fund your craft. It took me a while to be able to make merch, and it's like I'm still selling it. I have to put all the money up front. So that's one of the biggest things, honestly. I think that's honestly the biggest thing. It's just money, just like anyone else.
Yeah. And I know we talked a little bit before about like the challenges of also being a woman artist and trying to shed light on the fact that I guess women are capable and that they do have a certain look, or there are going to be different kinds of people who are going to be performing. How do you respond to individuals who are still kind of new to different faces and up and coming artists?
Female artists, I have one very specific piece of advice. There will be people that tell you that, oh, well, you have to tolerate a little disrespect to get ahead. And no, you don't. You don't. That's a myth. Like, you will be told that by people who want to take advantage of you, who want to mistreat you. Uh, a lot of it is your boundaries are being tested to see how much you're willing to tolerate. But if you do that, you're setting a precedent. And again, people will only respect you as much as you respect yourself. And I also tell a lot of my fellow female artists, you cannot be sweet, you cannot be nice, like the way you're expected to be. You have to be worse than the average male musician. And I saw this other quote a few days ago where it said, in creative industries, a lot of the time, difficult to work with actually means difficult to take advantage of. So a lot of the time, not every single time, some people are very difficult to work with because they're just not good people or not nice people or not kind people. But a lot of the time, it's like, how much can I get out of this person? How much can I take advantage of this person? Ladies, do not do that. There are other opportunities. There are good people who really want you to succeed, whether it's transactional or not. A lot of the time it is, and that's fine. But don't allow anybody to undervalue your craft or your value.
Yeah.
Undervalue your value. Yeah, I'm gonna double down on that. I'm gonna stick by that.
Can you give us an example, or maybe I'm just thinking to myself that you may have had to turn down an opportunity because there were some disrespectful experiences. Like, if you could share with us a certain scenario where you know you have to stand up for yourself and show respect, what does that look like?
Standing your ground. And well, a lot of it is the whole self-respect thing. Luckily, I had it before I entered this industry, I guess. But oh, there have been so many different instances. Like men, there have been times where a man would be interested in booking me, and oh, like, I'd love to take you out for a drink. Like, and it's not explicitly said that if you don't get this drink with me, then you're not going to get another gig. And unfortunately, there's no way for me to prove that because I'm an independent contractor. I can't do much because I'm not an employee, and they know that very well, and they take advantage of that. And I'd say, I'm not interested in getting a drink with you. I would still love to play. And a lot of the time, the offer would be rescinded, or all of a sudden they're paying me less because of that. I'd just be like, no, because there have been other times where I've been told, oh, well, no offense, but there are artists out here that are willing to play for that amount. And I'm like, okay, I'm not talking about them though. Like, you don't have to like, someone was telling me, oh, we get Nashville artists for that much. So, like, relax, like, you're not all that. And I'm like, I didn't say anything other than my rate. Like, you don't have to put me down and compare me to other artists to make your point. Either you can afford me or not. And if I'm not worth that, that's okay. There are people that do believe that I am. And but it's the disrespect aspect. Oh, and things have been mansplained to me a lot. Like, oh my god, just the other day, like, there have been times I had to block. There was this one time I had to block 2 men before 8 a.m. Like, people will constantly, like, sliding in the DMs, like, oh, I have an opportunity for you. Like, I mean, it's in a different state, but like, you could crash on my couch. And I'd be like, okay, I'd love to bring my boyfriend, and then all of a sudden they don't have an opportunity for me. So it's things like that where it's like, but again, this will happen a lot. You do not have to tolerate it, and those are not the only opportunities out there. And that is, those people that are trying to take advantage of you, there are people that you probably don't want to be associated with because that behavior comes out, whether it takes a few months or a decade. The music comes out, that situation comes out, that behavior comes out. You want to be able to say, that I refuse to work with this person, because then you'll be taken more seriously. It can even be a selfish thing. You also don't want to let those people know that they can get away with it. I mean, if they do, and you don't know any better and you're new to the industry, like, unfortunately that happens. It has happened to me, and that's not your fault. But here is me telling you that you don't have to put up with that, and you are worth more than that kind of treatment. I still get spoken to that way. I still get treated that way. And people think, I mean, I get treated that way a lot less because I'm taken more seriously, but I'm still not taken as seriously as a man who's been doing the same thing that I've been doing.
How do
And
you,
that's the thing. Like,
yeah.
like, my thing is, I have to work with that, because reality sucks, but complaining is only going to get you so far. So
That's a good point. I was gonna ask you, like, how do you kind of, because it's so hard to hold your ground sometimes, you know, when you get all this pushback and you don't know any better, and
you don't know where to start a lot of the time.
say it again.
You don't know where to start a lot of the time. And these predatory people intentionally look for up and coming artists because they know that they probably don't know any better.
That's scary to think about.
It is so real. It is
Yeah.
so real.
Yeah. And yeah,
It's
here you
almost
are.
like,
Yeah.
sorry, it's almost like MLM people intentionally seeking out people that are desperate for a job kind of thing. Is very similar to that.
Yeah, I was actually kind of thinking about that. It's not too different, right? Where there's so many people seeking out a certain kind of career, and then there's this constant cycle of disappointment because of all these rejection letters, or sometimes there's no callbacks, and you're like, what happened?
Oh, and that's another piece of advice that I have. For every like 50 emails that you send, 50 phone calls you send, you're going to get like 2 yeses. You can't, like, if you get discouraged by the first, I have gotten dozens of rejection emails. We don't think you're a good fit, which it can mean a lot of different things, but like, so many of them. But it's like, you learn not to take it personally after a while, because a lot of the time you're just not a good fit, or you're not at that caliber yet, which people will throw that term around a lot. But don't get discouraged. You'll find your place in the music community. It's going to take a while. I still haven't 100% found mine. So far, it's in a million different places. So I just need to get my footing in one of them.
Yeah. I want to quickly pivot to mental health for a bit.
Sure.
Because you're doing so much, right? Sometimes to some people who are just starting out, or people who are trying to figure out where they want to go in life, already what you're saying can be a bit overwhelming. And then all on top of that, you're still working your mental health, your emotional state, your well-being, things like that, security, all these different things. What are your biggest advice for someone who is working on their career aspirations, but also taking care of themselves?
Well, for one, if you have a day job, do not leave it. Like, I got very lucky. Like, if I had a day job that did not negatively affect my mental health, I would not have left it. And I still could have done a lot of music, but it is very difficult living off of music. It is very difficult living off of music. And it also takes a physical toll too, because this month I'm playing 15 gigs. There are only 30 days in a month. So of the 30 days, 15, I have to run errands or practice or write or do marketing stuff or rest or sleep or nap or eat. Like, I don't have a lot of time. And it's like, time management is super important. If you learn to manage your time, your mental health will thank you. Have a routine. Having a routine, it's not for everybody, and people have different ways of having a routine. Sometimes it's just a very these days are for me to not do anything at all, or to just be spontaneous, do whatever I want. And then these days are for laundry. Or sometimes you plan out every single day. Structure looks different for everybody, but having a routine definitely helps.
What's your routine like? If you can give some quick tips.
Oh, well, the weekends is usually I'm gigging. So during the day, I'll sleep in probably to rest up before the gig. I'll eat, I'll shower, I don't like to do any marketing work or any Canva work, mailing list stuff during the weekend, because that I want to focus all of my energy into performing. I'll try to see friends during the day since it's the weekend, and because it's really hard for me to see anyone at night, which sucks because most of my friends have 9 to 5 big boy jobs. Um, but I'll try to do that during the week. I also sleep in, or at least I try to. Marketing work, and sometimes I used to be better at just going to a coffee shop and just being there from like 10 a.m. to 3 or 4 p.m. just working, and then going to an open mic at night or going to an event at night or a show or something. But that's kind of my routine. And then there are specific days that I'm just like, for example, this Fridays are huge gig days for me. My boyfriend and I are going to the beach because I needed that. Like, I need to step away from where there's less service. I'm not on my phone all the time. I'm not on my computer. I'm not obligated to speak to anybody, because people assume that I'm at a gig, so they're not going to bother reaching out to me. Like, I need that kind of, and I know that, and I'm going to take a day that I could be making a lot of money just to relax. Because even though, and I was debating it, I was like, should I waste, that's the way I was thinking about it at the time. I was like, should I waste a Friday to relax? Why don't I choose a Tuesday? But it's like, it's not a waste if it's helping me avoid burnout. Self-care ultimately is just avoiding burnout. I think I told you over the phone the other day. But yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds to me like your routines are essentially a way of creating boundaries and listening to yourself and setting things in place so that certain days are designated for task and other days for your mental, emotional well-being and friendships, social life, things like that. So that's really powerful that you have all those things in place.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And as someone who's constantly talking about everyone else and encouraging people and empowering other people, I would love to ask you who or what inspires you.
Oh, I think some of my friends in the music scene, how far they've come and how much they're doing for the music community and how they're fostering that sense of community in the music scene. They inspire me a lot. Um, I would say that. I don't know if I even have a specific person that I look up to necessarily, but like some of the people that I have in my life. Again, I'm not just saying this for like the feel good kind of thing. It's just I'm just so lucky to have the people that I have.
Yeah, and we're definitely very lucky to have you because you're just someone who radiates a lot of wisdom, love for others, for the craft that you do, and the resilience in your own life. So grateful that you're here. And one last question is, how can people find you or and reach out to you?
Oh, yeah. So you can follow me on or find me on Instagram, Facebook, Val Merza Music. I'm on YouTube, also Val Merza Music. I am on Spotify and Apple Music now, which is super exciting. But
Congratulations.
thank you so much. You can stream my song. This is my 23. That's available on all streaming platforms. Whatever you listen to music on, it's there. Check out my webs if you're in the North Carolina area or the South. You can check out my website, Val Merza Music. No, valmerza.com, for like a list of my shows. If you're interested in booking me, hit me up. But yeah, that's how you could find me.
Very, very awesome. Yeah. So if you're ever in the area or interested in listening to the music, it is online and I have listened to it. It's a very relatable story of being 23. um, and I think you
I'm
will love.
so sorry
No,
that you could
even
relate to it
like
because it was
just
rough.
no, but even if you listen to it, you can hear how wonderful Val's voice is and the way that she's expressing all of her emotions through music. So she is an up and coming artist. I think she's gonna just succeed in the she's already successful and continue to be successful. So I'm hoping more people will, resonate with you. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey with us. Really appreciate, the depth of the detail and the vulnerability of where you were to where you are today. So thank you, Val.
Thank you so much for having me. And
Yeah. Any final thoughts for you?
no, just thank you so much for having me and talking to me. It's like it's great for the podcast and everything. But it's just nice to talk to you because it's been a while.
Yeah, of course. Same here. Thank you so much. All right, everyone, have a great rest of your day and looking forward to the next episode.